The first time Rafe Coulter heard the dog bark, he laughed and tossed a beer can into the fire pit. Coyotes, maybe, or someone's mutt chasing squirrels. But the barking didn't stop. It clawed at the night, low, urgent, almost panicked. By the third night, it had moved closer, and it was always pointed toward the woods behind his house. The trees there grew too thick, even in daylight. Folks in Grayson Hollow said the forest never forgot. Rafe didn't believe in that kind of thing. Not until the K9 came with the deputy. Not until they went in together. And only one came out. The sky over Grayson Hollow was turning the color of bruised fruit. August heat still clung to the trees like a fever, but the wind carried a warning. Dry, sharp, edged with smoke and coming storm. Rafe Coulter stood on his back porch, shirtless, beer in hand, watching the woods sway in the distance. He squinted toward the tree line, trying to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. The barking again. Third night in a row. Jesus Christ, he muttered, flicking his cigarette into the grass. Someone leashed that damn dog. But there was something in the cadence tonight. Not angry, not territorial. Desperate. Behind him, the screen door creaked. Maggie stepped out, pulling her sweater tighter. She always looked a little cold since the miscarriage. Like her body couldn't trust the seasons anymore. "You hear that?" she asked softly. "Yeah, some stray, or someone's K9. Probably catching wind of a raccoon or something." She didn't respond, just wrapped her arms around herself like she was holding in a secret. "I hate that sound," she said finally. "It's like it's warning us." Rafe turned back toward the woods and took another swig. "It's just a dog, Mags." But the dog didn't stop barking. Not even after midnight. Not even when the wind howled through the eaves like something whispering through its teeth. Deputy Caleb Vance arrived the next morning. Not because of the barking, but because someone reported smoke. Rafe was already outside with a rake, half-heartedly clearing branches from the back fence. "Morning, Coulter," Caleb said as he parked near the gravel drive. His K9, a wiry Belgian Malinois named Kiro, sat tense in the front seat, eyes locked on the woods. "Morning," Rafe said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Got a call from an old-timer down on Ridgeview. Said he saw smoke rising from your tree line. You burning trash." Rafe blinked. "Last night?" "No, just had a fire in the pit. Nothing big." Caleb nodded slowly, eyes scanning the property. Kiro gave a soft whine. "You hear anything strange last night?" Caleb asked. "Only that damn dog again. Barking like hell." Caleb's jaw twitched. "Kiro's been going off too. Keeps pacing the gate when we pass your stretch of trees." Rafe chuckled and shook his head. "Maybe you're K9, and mine are just trying to hook up." Caleb didn't smile. "Mind if we walk the edge of your property?" Rafe hesitated. "You got a warrant?" "Just a routine check. Someone said they smelled burning. Might have been nothing. Or maybe kids screwing around. You want that in your woods." Rafe gestured with the rake. "Be my guess." Kiro bolted from the cruiser before Caleb even gave the command. He made straight for the trees. "Goddamn," Caleb muttered, trotting after him. "Something's got him spun up." Rafe followed reluctantly, boots crunching dry leaves. The woods behind his house weren't his, technically. Just old land no one wanted. Roots like claws, tangled brush, more ticks than trees. A good place to dump beer bottles, or have a fight. Or worse. Kiro stopped at a dead elm, nose buried in the dirt. Then he barked 3 times. Loud. Sharp. A pattern. Caleb froze. That's his signal for human remains. Rafe laughed. A nervous, ugly sound. "You're kidding." But Caleb wasn't. He called it in. By sundown, the scene was crawling with uniforms and taped-off stakes. Maggie stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching them pull something from the dirt with blue gloves and whispered urgency. "I don't like this," she said to Rafe, voice hollow. "No one does," he muttered. "Why was it in our woods?" "Not our woods," he snapped. She flinched like he'd slapped her, then added more quietly, "Do you think it's her?" Rafe turned confused. "Who?" Maggie stared at the trees. "That girl from 4 years ago. The one who went missing." Rafe frowned. Lena Briggs. She used to walk this path after school. I saw her once. Right there. She pointed at the line of ash-covered roots near the fence. He stared at her like she'd grown another face. You never told me that. I didn't think it mattered. But now it did. The bones were small, fragile, a partial skull, a scattering of ribs, a child's shoe, pink with faded sequins. Forensics would take time, but no one said aloud. Everyone thought it. It was Lena. She was 12 when she vanished. Her father had searched the woods himself for 3 weeks. He died of liver failure last fall. Drank himself to sleep, neighbors whispered. Rafe didn't sleep that night. Not because of what they'd found, but because the barking had stopped. Completely. 2 days later, Caleb came back. You didn't tell me you were questioned during the original search. Rafe didn't look up from his lawnmower blade. I wasn't a suspect. You said you didn't know Lena. I didn't. But Maggie did. Rafe stood slowly. What are you trying to say? Caleb stepped closer, voice quiet. There was blood on the roots, mixed with old ash, and traces of burnt clothing. She didn't just end up buried. Someone tried to hide her. Rafe stared at him, fists tightening. You think I think you need to be straight with me. Get off my property. Caleb sighed. For what it's worth, I don't think it was you. But I think you know something you don't want to admit. Rafe didn't respond. Kiro sat by the tree again that evening, staring into the woods. Still, silent. That night, Maggie didn't come to bed. Rafe found her in the laundry room, holding a small plastic bag. Pink fabric. Torn. Burned around the edges. Sequins melted into the cloth. Where did you get that? He asked. His voice dead. Maggie didn't answer. Where did you get it, Mags? I found it behind the shed. Months ago. Why didn't you say anything? I thought it was just trash. Or a dog toy. I didn't know. She looked at him with wide, wet eyes. You don't think I would hurt her, do you? Rafe didn't answer. Not then. But something cold slid between them and stayed there. A storm came that weekend. Torrential rain soaked the roots, and the earth began to slip. Deputies came again Monday. Kiro led them deeper, 20 yards past the elm. There, beneath a tangle of roots and rocks, they found something else. A tin lunchbox. Inside, a bracelet. And a tooth. It belonged to a different child. Not Lena. Now there were 2. And maybe more. The morning after they found the second set of remains, Grayson Hollow felt different. Not quieter, just held, like the whole town was holding its breath. The discovery of a single child's bones had cracked the ground open. The second had sent fractures deeper. 2 different children, 2 different years, both buried behind Rafe Coulter's property. Not just woods anymore. Crime scene, curse, graveyard. No one said it out loud, but people were already whispering. Rafe knew at the moment he stepped into McGill's hardware for nails. The way conversations stopped. The way old men glanced away like eye contact might implicate them. The way a mother pulled her daughter closer by the cereal rack like his shadow might stain. He gripped the box of nails so tight the cardboard gave. Paid in cash. Didn't say a word. When he stepped outside, Caleb Vance was waiting by the patrol truck. Don't start, Rafe muttered. Caleb nodded toward the woods. We found something else this morning. Rafe didn't ask, just stared down the empty street, the heat rising off the pavement like ghosts. At the base of the second dig site, forensic teams were quiet, surgical in their movements. Caleb kept his voice low as they walked. We found hair, braided, tied off with a ribbon. It wasn't exposed to fire, so it's preserved. Another one, not confirmed, but different soil layer, different decomposition. Third timeline. Rafe turned, his voice flat. What do you want from me, Caleb? Caleb looked at him like a man picking his words one shard at a time. I think you know this place better than you're letting on. I grew up here. Exactly. They stopped at the edge of the tape. Kiro sat, tense and silent, next to a spade-thin tree half torn by lightning. The ground near it was freshly dug. Rafe felt his stomach tighten. You never went out here as a kid? Caleb asked. Rafe stared past him. We weren't allowed. By who? Rafe's jaw clicked. My father. You never wonder why. Plenty of things weren't allowed in our house, Caleb. That didn't mean they made sense. Caleb watched him for a moment. Your dad ever hit you? Rafe blinked. Didn't answer. Didn't have to. Caleb nodded to himself. Step back. We might need to dig deeper. Records. Reports. Talk to your mom if she's around. She isn't. Left. Rafe looked up at the trees. Buried. That night, Maggie stood barefoot in the yard, one hand resting on the fence post. The woods were black. Silent. You believe me now? She asked. Rafe didn't speak. Maggie stepped closer. You think I did something? I don't know what I think. You think I hid that shirt? Why didn't you throw it away? Her lip trembled. Because something told me not to. Rafe turned away, hand trembling as he opened a beer. That's not an answer, Mags. No, she whispered. It's not. By morning, the FBI had arrived. Caleb looked older overnight, jaw set tight, shirt sweat stuck to his back as he helped the feds coordinate sections. 3 confirmed remains, he told Rafe. All female, different years. Oldest one dated back to 96. Rafe's mouth went dry. That's before we moved here. Yeah, but it's after he did. Rafe didn't need to ask who. His father, Dennis Coulter, dead 15 years. Buried in the very same woods they were now unearthing. A week after the funeral, Rafe had burned his dad's shed to the ground. No one asked why. No one wanted to. Later that afternoon, Caleb showed up again. But this time, he had a folder in his hand. He laid it on the kitchen table, like it weighed 100 pounds. Thought you should see this before they knock on your door with it. Inside, photos. Grainy, Polaroid style. Girls. Sitting on an old wooden chair. All of them in different dresses. All of them looking off camera. All of them terrified. Maggie gasped, covered her mouth. Rafe stared down at the pictures like they might catch fire. These were in your dad's toolbox. Hidden in the attic. We had to break the lock. I never went up there, Rafe muttered. Caleb looked at him. You never suspected? I knew he was mean. I didn't know he was a monster. Sometimes those are the same thing. Rafe's hands curled. I didn't know. You sure? The silence stretched. Finally, Caleb said softly, There's one more. He slid the last photo out. It wasn't a girl. It was a boy. Dirty. Maybe 10. Rope marks around his wrists. Same chair. Same angle. Rafe stood so fast the chair skidded backward. No, I don't know who that is. Caleb didn't move. Just stared. You're sure? Rafe's voice cracked. I said I don't know. But something twisted in his chest. A memory, blurry. A summer when he was 8. A boy who came to stay with him for 2 weeks. Foster kid. Said he ran away. His name had been Jesse. Rafe had liked him. And then one day he was just gone. Later that night, Rafe sat on the porch with his hands shaking. Maggie came out, sat beside him, wordless. Finally, she asked, Do you think your dad killed all of them? I don't know, but I think he started something. Maggie stared into the woods. Maybe it didn't stop. Rafe turned. What do you mean? She swallowed. You're not going to like it. Mags. She looked him in the eye. There's someone who still comes out here. Every few months. I've seen the tracks. Fresh ones. Boots. Cigarette butts. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared. Of me? She looked down. No. Of what you might do if you knew. 3 nights later, Rafe was woken by barking. But this time, it wasn't random. It was Kiro, and it was close. Rafe rushed outside barefoot, flashlight swinging across the yard. Rain misted from the sky in threads, making everything look silver and unreal. There, near the edge of the tree lean, was Caleb, Kiro at his heel, gun drawn. What the hell are you doing? Rafe shouted. Caleb didn't look away from the brush. We saw movement. Drone picked up a figure walking the perimeter. Thought it was you. It wasn't. Then Kiro lunged, straight into the undergrowth. A rustle, a shape bolted, shadowed, fast. Caleb gave chase. Rafe followed. Branches slapped their faces. Roots threatened ankles. The forest swallowed sound. Then a shout, Caleb, and a loud crack. Rafe found him lying in the muck, clutching his leg. He went that way, Caleb growled. Tall, black jacket, masked, still alive. Rafe turned, looked toward the trees. And for just a second, no more, he thought he saw something watching. Then it was gone. The next morning, a footprint was found. Boot tread. Fresh. Not Rafe's. Not Caleb's. DNA results on the cigarette, but came back. Not Dennis Coulter. Whoever was still using the woods was someone else. And they were still out there, watching, waiting. The woods no longer slept. Every breeze carried a sense of being watched. Eyes behind bark, breath behind fog. The air in Grayson Hollow had changed, like the ground itself was bracing, waiting for someone to pull the last thread and let everything unravel. A stranger had moved in the dark behind the Coulter house. Not Rafe's father. He was dead, not someone random. The timing was too precise, too practiced. Rafe stood in the yard with Caleb's blood drying on his shirt, watching deputies sweep the woods again. Kiro paced near the root line, whining low in his throat. We're not dealing with one killer, Caleb had told him at the ER, gritting his teeth as the doctor stitched his leg. We're dealing with a legacy. Rafe hadn't said anything, but deep down, something curdled inside him. Maybe monsters didn't die with the men who made them. Maybe they passed themselves on. 2 days later, the name Jesse Harwin came back from missing person archives. Last seen in 1999. Entered the Coulter home under emergency foster placement after his mother was arrested for meth possession. Case closed after he ran away. The system moved on, but the photo was unmistakable. Same boy in the old Polaroid. Rafe stared at it for a long time. Face pale, lips pressed thin. A boy who had shared his bunk for 2 weeks. Who had cried once during a thunderstorm. Who had liked drawing skulls on notebook paper. I didn't know he died, Rafe whispered. I thought he left. Caleb, sitting stiffly on the couch with a cane between his knees, said nothing, just watched. Then Rafe added softer, but I think I heard him scream. That night, Maggie left a note on the counter. Gone to Mom's for a few days. Need space. Rafe didn't blame her. He wasn't even sure who he was defending anymore. Himself, his childhood, or the ghost of a father whose name tasted like acid in his throat. He poured a whiskey, stared out the window. The trees moved wrong in the wind, like they were breathing. Around midnight, Kiro showed up alone. Rafe didn't even hear the cruiser, just looked up to see the Malinois sitting at the bottom of his porch, soaked from rain, eyes locked on the woods. Rafe stepped out barefoot, kneeling. Where's Caleb? Kiro growled, low, dangerous. Then he turned and walked into the trees. Rafe hesitated and followed. They crossed the route line into the forest. Kiro moving like a ghost, Rafe clutching a flashlight and a .38 from the lockbox. He hadn't used it in years. Never had to. But something about tonight felt final. They passed the elm, past the burned-out pit, past the shallow grave sites now marked with flags. Kiro stopped near a thicket of thorns, growled, and began to dig. Rafe stepped closer. Under brush, hidden in mud, was a small wooden hatch, iron ring rusted, covered in leaves. Rafe knelt, heart hammering. He pulled it open. A breath of stale air, rotting wood, and something worse drifted up. Below, darkness. Wooden steps. The edge of something buried not just beneath the ground, but beneath time. He clicked the flashlight on and descended. The basement wasn't part of the house. It wasn't part of anything. Hand-dug walls, packed dirt, reinforced beams old enough to splinter, chains bolted to stone, a rusted chair in the middle of the room, and photos tacked along the walls. Girls, boys, all of them with eyes turned away. And one photo that stopped Rafe cold. Maggie, younger, 17 maybe, standing in these very woods, smiling. And next to her, his father. Rafe's knees nearly gave. She'd told him she came to Grayson Hollow, when she was 20. She had lied. A sound behind him. Rafe turned, and a fist cracked into his jaw. Darkness. He woke tied to the chair. Ropes bit into his wrists. Across the room, a shape stood by the wall, lighting a cigarette. The flame lit a face that was familiar, but not in a way that made sense. Thin, sunken, eyes too bright, voice calm as polished wood. "I wondered if you'd ever come down here," the man said. Rafe coughed. "Who the hell are you?" The man smiled. "Names are tricky. I've had a few, but I guess you could call me a family friend." "What do you want?" The man exhaled smoke. "I want the cycle to finish. Your daddy started it. You're supposed to continue it." Rafe's voice cracked. "What?" The man stepped closer. "You ever wonder why you still live here? Why you never really left? Why Maggie stayed? We all play roles, Rafe. Some of us are the silence. Some are the scream." Rafe's fists clenched against the rope. "You killed those girls?" The man didn't answer. Just smiled again. "No, you buried them. You just don't remember." Rafe froze. "No, you were young. You watched. You helped. Kids obey their fathers. Even monsters." Rafe's voice shook. "You're lying." The man leaned down. "Are you sure?" Then came the growl. "Low. Close. Kiro." The man turned, just as the dog launched. Teeth sank into his arm. He screamed, dropped the knife he'd been holding. Rafe surged forward, chair tipping. He crashed to the ground hard enough to break the wood. Pain lit up his ribs, but he rolled, gripped the blade, and slashed the ropes from his wrists. The man was scrambling backward, blood pouring from his sleeve. Kiro blocked the exit. "Rafe," he hissed. "Don't be stupid." Rafe stood, pointed the pistol. "Tell me the truth. Did I help him? Did I kill them?" Silence. Then the man said, "You dug one of the holes. You were 6. He told you it was a game." Tears stung Rafe's eyes. "And Maggie? She's not innocent." The man lunged. Rafe fired. One shot. The man crumpled, twitched, went still. Kiro padded to his side, panting. It was done. Caleb found Rafe an hour later, standing outside the hatch, eyes blank, hands shaking. Kiro sat beside him, unmoving. "You okay?" Caleb asked. "No." Rafe turned, looked at him like someone waking from a coma. "I remembered something." Caleb waited. "My dad had a rule. No girls allowed past the fence. He said it was sacred ground. I thought it was just him being crazy. But he knew. He knew what was buried there, and he wanted to keep it full." Caleb nodded slowly. "And the guy?" Rafe wiped his mouth. "He said I helped. I think he was trying to break me. But maybe I did. I don't know." Caleb put a hand on his shoulder. "You were a kid, Rafe. There's a difference between being near evil and choosing it." Rafe swallowed. "But if I don't remember, does it matter?" 3 weeks later. The woods were cleared. The bodies exhumed. The story made national headlines. They called it the Grayson Hollow Killings. Authorities confirmed 8 victims. 3 killers, Dennis Coulter, his unnamed accomplice, later identified through prints as Roy Lindley, a former child psychologist, and possibly a third, still unconfirmed. Rafe stayed. Maggie didn't return. Her note came by mail. "You need to find who you were before all this. I need to find who I am without it." He didn't blame her. He walked the route line each morning, not with fear, but with awareness. Kiro walked beside him, tail steady. Sometimes he paused beneath the elm. There, he buried the last photo, the one that showed him, age 6, smiling, shovel in hand, unaware of what he was digging. The earth held everything now, but it also forgave, one breath at a time.